Hello, welcome to HITC Sport. Right, so a few days ago, I did a video about every Premier League team's player most likely to score a beautiful goal. Now let's do the opposite. A player from each team most likely of messing up. You know, the liabilities in the team. Whether that's someone who keeps missing penalties, keeps getting sent off, lazy back passes, anything. Just anything that makes you think, yeah, better keep an eye on that fella today. His mere presence in the starting lineup terrifies me to my very soul. Arsenal shocked Mustafi. David Luiz probably can't believe his luck at any of his former clubs. Actually, at most top flight clubs on the goddamn planet, he'd probably take the award for this hands down. But no, instead step forward Shokra Mustafi. Where do we start? The lad has messed up leading to goals against his own side at least 10 to 15 times. Just ask the Arsenal fans, the mere presence of Mustafi in the starting lineup is enough to cause them daily nightmares. This man cost 35 million quid. Just think about it for a second. 35 million for a walking catalogue of errors, sloppy play, and just overall being able to possess the ability to quench his team's good efforts in play with one lazy flick of his foot. I'm not sure how he's still at Arsenal, really, I'm not. The lad is absolutely horrendous. Aston Villa PEPE REINA. If in doubt, blame the goalkeeper. Listen, PEPE REINA is a decent and experienced keeper, but let's just not pretend that he hasn't just filled his career with a bunch of catastrophic howlers either. Like in the Merseyside derby back in 2006, when his idea of a save was to chuck a ball off his goal line onto the head of Andy Johnson to score a third. Also, let's not forget the fact that REINA holds the distinction for being the first and only goalkeeper to have been deceived by a goddamn beach ball. Bournemouth Dominic Solanke. Oh, here we are. The king of embarrassing himself on the goddamn football pitch. Dominic Solanke has gone an entire year without so much as sniffing in the direction of a goal for Bournemouth. This is a 22-year-old professional centre forward with a record of 29 Premier League games of football and just one goal to show for it. If you're relying on one Bournemouth player to mess up, oh, you're goddamn right you're betting on him to do it. Solanke is woeful, lads. He's absolutely terrible. How he ever managed to trick both Chelsea and Liverpool into employing him, I still have absolutely no idea. Brighton Shane Duffy. I know what you're thinking, Shane Duffy is one of the reliable ones at Brighton. Well, yes and no, lads. There aren't many people at Brighton capable of mistakes, but Duffy, when he's good, he's great. But I do remember his performance in that Euro 2016 last 16 tie against France, lads. I remember the reckless red card that left us trying to play the last half hour with 10 bastard men. I also remember the 5-0 home drubbing against Bournemouth last April. Arguably one of the worst defensive masterclasses I've ever seen. Listen, don't get me wrong, I like Duffy and he is a good defender, but good lord does that man have a mistake in him. I also haven't forgotten how Duffy ended things at Blackburn by scoring 3 own goals in a week. Oh yeah, in between getting sent off as well, obviously. Oh good lord, the Blackburn fans probably hate him. Burnley Joe Hart. There's a good reason why Joe Hart isn't allowed onto the pitch anymore. Yes, the man was once a 2-time Premier League champion and 4-time Golden Glove winner, but the last few years, the man has been a walking mistake. Yes, he was always prone to the odd few errors every now and then at Man City, or for England. I mean, let's not forget this man actually conceded a bicycle kick from a full 40 yards out. How? Just how? But ever since Euro 2016, a tournament where he was responsible for at least 3 soft goals, Christ. Out in Torino, he was messing up nearly every week. Same story at West Ham, and even last season at Burnley. That man really is in danger of just retiring a damn shampoo stain on someone's bench. Chelsea Kepa. Yeah, now that David Luiz has finally left Chelsea, I'm gonna have to vote for Kepa as the club's prize clown. You'd think if you paid 75 million quid for a goddamn goalkeeper, he'd be world class. Or at the very least, not resorting to making basic errors that we laughed at a Sunday League. Actually no, I play Sunday League. I've seen my keeper concede goals from corner kicks. Good lord, Kepa hasn't been great this season though. Like spilling a tame shot off Isaac Hayden's nose into the bottom corner last week. How about his shocking concession of 4 goals home to Ajax? Oh, and let's not forget the man brought shame and embarrassment on the club by refusing to come off the pitch in a cup final, essentially proving to the world that yes, Chelsea are and always have been a club controlled by spoiled British players. Crystal Palace Christian Benteke. Yeah, Christian Benteke is an absolute liability. It's not even that he doesn't score. It's not that he's managed 4 goals in his last 60 games of football. Don't get me wrong, that is absolutely horrendous for a £27 million striker on wages north of 100 grand a week. But I've seen Benteke steal crucial last minute spot kicks off his teammates, only to miss them. I'm sorry, but that is the very epitome of modern day selfishness. Putting yourself before the good of your team. Everton Michael Keane. Yeah, I know on his day Michael Keane is a top defender, but when he's not on his day, he'd struggle to get a game for his local pub team. The man is erratic to say the least, and yes, has carved out a much better career than his twin brother, a lad currently warming the bench in League One. But really, ask Everton fans, the very sight of Michael stalling with the ball inside his own 6-yard box is enough to cause heart palpitations. Yeah, I know he plays for England, but even then, remember last November when he passed the ball straight to Kosovo to take the lead at Wembley after 35 seconds? Ball-playing defenders always have a mistake in them, lads, but Keane more than most. Leicester Johnny Evans. I'll admit it, lads, Leicester City was the toughest option on this list. How could I accuse any of the defenders of being error-prone? Or the midfield when they're creating chances every week? For God's sake, even Kelechi Iheanacho is back in the goals. I feel dirty and wrong for even selecting him considering what a great season he's had, but I mean nobody else jumps out at me, so step forward Johnny Evans. Yeah, I know he's solid and reliable these days, but he's been around long enough for me to remember his mistakes, like during his last 6 months at West Brom. In between stealing taxis, the man was at fault for multiple goals for an Alan Pardew team soaring for the drop. I also remember him at Old Trafford. There were defensive nightmares in 4-0 defeats to West Ham. I mean, really, letting Jonathan Spector score twice, that is a sackable offence. There was also a clumsy red card in a 6-1 defeat to Man City. Listen, I know these mistakes were in the past, and he's turned into a top-class defender, but I mean, who else would you choose? Liverpool Dejan Lovren. Dejan Lovren is going to finish his Liverpool career Premier League champion, a man who reached 2 Champions League finals, a World Cup final, and lifted the World Club Cup. In his own head, he's going to think he's the best defender on the planet. But no, the rest of us sane individuals with a few working chromosomes know the truth. Even last weekend, Lovren was at fault for chucking away a 2-goal lead against Shrewsbury Town. This man has missed crucial spot kicks in European penalty shootouts. The man's positional sense has been erratic. Some of the mistakes he's made have been laughable. Let's not forget that trip to Spurs, where he lasted just 31 minutes on the pitch before getting hauled off. Man City John Stones. I mean, who else but John Stones? To be fair, Stones is a top player, but it's just his mistakes are always so goddamn dramatic. The man takes risks when he plays, always keeps the ball on the deck, and so when you do that, every now and then you will get caught out. There have been several losses of concentration, slips, and just general sloppy play while at City, but his worst game was that 3-1 defeat to Holland in the Nations League final, where he was dispossessed in his own box twice. Oh, by the way, lads, this is your annoying mid-video reminder. Try and hit 400k as soon as possible, so if you could subscribe and smash that button with notifications turned on, you would be an absolute legend. Man United Phil Jones. Well, we can always rely on Phil Jones that contoured his face into something that looks as though it'd been flattened by a train, but in terms of football, oh, you can always rely on him for a mistake or 7. This is a man whose brand of defending extends to clearing the ball with his face while lying on the ground. He's a fellow who scored 4 own goals for Manchester United. What a guy. Don't let him near the pitch, unless it's against Tranmere Rovers. Newcastle Jonjo Shelvey. To be fair, Newcastle's defence is fairly steady, and while Martin Dubravka is prone to messing up every now and then, I think it would be unfair to pick him. Instead, step forward Jonjo Shelvey. This is a man who misses his fair share of penalties, despite possessing the sweetest strike of a ball in the entire squad. He's a liability. He's already admitted earlier this season that if he was the manager, he would drop him. Despite his price tag and big wages, Shelvey was still a man who was largely marginalised under Rafa Benitez simply because he couldn't be trusted. Yes, Shelvey is culpable of booting good chances in the rosette, of picking up bounds for stamping on opponents. Lads, Norwich Grant Hanley. Yeah, only one winner here, Grant Hanley. I'm convinced if you were to play back a career compilation of this man's finest moments, it would simply be 6 minutes of own goals, dodgy back passes, and just overall generally terrible defending. I mean, to be fair, he did score a goal at Old Trafford once for Blackburn in a game which saw several Manchester United fans finally give up on David De Gea. But other than that, good lord, it's been a bang average career. Although admittedly, still galaxies better than mine. Sheffield United Jack Rodwell. I mean, who else am I going to choose? Everyone else in the entire Sheffield United squad is fairly steady and reliable. Ravel Morrison aside, Jack Rodwell, well, he went 40 games without a win for Sunderland. Clearly that man is a huge liability. Just ask those fans. Southampton Angus Gunn. And I could have gone for Shane Long, a lad who's been guilty of wasting so many chances to score in recent years, but no, instead stepped forward Angus Gunn. Yeah, he's a 24-year-old giant, but still, he hasn't played for the Saints since conceding 9 in one match. I think it's fair to say he's guilty of mistakes. Tottenham won Foyth. Oh good lord, won Foyth. I'm not sure why Mauricio Pochettino tried to persist with him last season. He was absolute cow fudge. Just look at his debut. The young Argentine defender comes in and concedes 2 penalties against Wolves in his first ever game. Christ. Watford Ben Foster. Listen, Ben Foster is a good goalkeeper, but he's also erratic at the same time. This is a man who's been scored on by the opposing goalkeeper from their own goddamn box. The only other keeper to have done that in the Premier League was Adam Bogdan. Even last season, Foster essentially kicked the ball into his own net after whacking it into Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang's ankles. He's a good player, but he's got a mistake in him too. West Ham Roberto. Oh, this man is just laughable. Where do we start? This fellow was making mistakes nearly every minute he was on the pitch for West Ham. He simply can't be trusted. For God's sake, against Burnley, he just chucked the ball into his own net. How? Wolves Johnny. I'm not sure for Wolves. There aren't too many players in that squad capable of high-profile gaffes. Maybe the right wing back Johnny Otto, who sometimes gets caught out of position, but to be honest, not very often. Anyway, that's the end of the video, lads, so let me know what you think. What player do you think makes the most high-profile errors at your club? The ones you simply cannot trust? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a like, share, and subscribe. And as always, I'll talk to you in a while.